The plasma blade kissed Riker's throat close enough to smell burning air. 10,000 voices roared across the grand plaza of Valuria, a tide of purple-skinned faces demanding blood under twin suns that painted everything gold and violet. He knelt on marble that had been white this morning. Now it ran with colors he didn't want to think about. The executioner's breath reeked of fermented something, breakfast of champions on alien worlds. Last words, human? Riker lifted his eyes, past the blade, past the executioner's mantis-like stance, to the throne. She sat like a weapon forged from starlight and ice. Silver armor caught the suns and threw back liquid fire. Her hair fell in intricate braids that must have taken hours, each strand the color of moonlight on snow. Purple skin, darker than twilight. Eyes like frozen amethyst. 20 years had changed everything and nothing. "I kept my promise," he said. The plaza fell silent. 10,000 alien hearts stopped beating for one impossible second. The Empress jerked like he'd struck her. One hand flew to her throat, to the silver chain barely visible beneath her armor's collar, to the crystal that hung there clear as water, familiar as breathing. Her lips shaped a word. No sound came out. Riker smiled. Blood from the blade's kiss ran warm down his neck. He didn't look away. "Your Majesty," he said softer, just for her. "I found you. 20 years earlier." The acid swamp bubbled 3 feet below Riker's head, releasing burps of sulfur that made his eyes water and his stomach clench. Blood pounded in his temples as he hung upside down from the training bar arms locked across his chest, counting each second like he was counting the days until death. "Grandpa." The word came out strangled. "I'm going to throw up." Admiral Draven Valen sipped coffee from a steel thermos, checking his wrist chronometer with the casual interest of a man timing toast. The morning heat of Nexar 5 pressed down like a physical weight, making Riker's training blacks stick to his skinny frame. "Warriors don't vomit, boy." "But my head's exploding." "Then it was weak to begin with." The old man settled onto a rusted cargo container, his pristine white uniform somehow immune to the planet's eternal grime. "Your father hung for 10 minutes at your age. Over real lava." Real lava would have killed anyone from the heat alone, but Riker knew better than to point that out. Draven's stories grew with each telling, expanding like the universe itself, increasingly difficult to believe. A swamp beetle, the size of Riker's fist, crawled up the training bar toward his bound ankles. Its mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "There's a bug." "Good. Builds character." The beetle's antennae tickled through his sock. Riker thrashed. His stomach contents sloshed dangerously. "Stay still," Draven commanded. "In real combat, showing fear gets you." Riker vomited spectacularly. The swamp below hissed and bubbled with new enthusiasm. The beetle scuttled away in disgust. Draven stood brushing imaginary dust from his uniform. "Pathetic. We start over after breakfast." He cut the rope. Riker hit the swamp bank hard, rolling away from the acid's edge exactly like his grandfather had taught him. Probably the only reason the bastard dropped him there instead of in it. Covered in mud and shame, the boy pushed himself up on shaking arms. "Breakfast is cancelled," Draven announced, already walking toward their temporary quarters in the trading station. Weakness doesn't eat. The moment his grandfather disappeared around a stack of shipping containers, Riker bolted. He knew every blind spot in the surveillance network by now. 3 months on this cesspool of a trading planet had taught him that much. The cameras followed predictable patterns. Draven's military discipline meant precisely scheduled bathroom breaks, 7 minutes of freedom. That's all Riker ever got. He vaulted the chain-link fence, scrambled through a drainage pipe that reeked of things he didn't want to identify, and emerged in the lower markets where even Draven wouldn't follow in his precious white uniform. The crowds here moved like a living organism. Grey-skinned traders with mantis bodies clicking over prices. Blue Athetherans floating past in environment suits, humans haggling over black market tech that would get them imprisoned on any civilized world. The air tasted of burnt metal and fried protein, sweet rot of overripe fruit from 3 different planets, spices that made Riker's eyes water worse than the swamp. He swiped a meat stick from a distracted vendor's cart, devouring it as he walked. His stomach empty except for acid, and rage welcomed the greasy sustenance. That's when he heard the screams. Not the ordinary shouting of the markets. He'd learned to filter that out weeks ago. This was different, younger, frightened. Riker followed the sound down an alley between 2 decomposing buildings where fungus grew in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The screaming had stopped. Worse than the screaming was the silence that replaced it. 3 Grai had cornered something small against a waste compactor. Valuran girl flesh brings good price. One clicked in broken common, its forearms weaving excited patterns in the air. Collectors pay much for last of dead empire. The small figure pressed harder against the wall, hidden beneath a tattered cloak that had been purple once, maybe, before it became the color of despair. Share 3 ways, another Grai agreed, reaching with a serrated claw. Or sell whole. Buyers like unbroken. Riker's hand found a length of pipe before his brain fully processed the decision. 10 years old, 40 kilos soaking wet. Against 3 adult Grai who stood 7 feet tall each. Draven would call this stupid. Riker called it Tuesday. He brought the pipe down hard on the first Gray's knee joint, the weak spot Draven had drilled into him during their xenobiology lessons. The creature's leg buckled with a sound like breaking celery. As it toppled, Riker grabbed a chunk of broken concrete and pitched it straight into the second trader's compound eyes. The third Grai lunged. Riker dropped and rolled between its legs, came up behind it, and delivered a kick to what Draven had delicately called the universal weak point. Even mantis aliens had sensitive spots, apparently. Crazy human pup. The one with concrete in its eyes stumbled away, greenish blood leaking from one socket. Not worth. Not worth. They fled the injured one, dragging its broken leg, leaving smears of ichor on the alley floor. Riker stood panting, pipe still raised, adrenaline making his whole body sing. His hands shook, his heart hammered. He'd never felt more alive. The cloaked figure hadn't moved. "Hey!" He tried to sound like the heroes in the comics he kept hidden under his bunk. "You okay?" The hood lifted. Riker forgot how breathing worked. Purple skin like twilight sky. Silver hair that caught even the dim alley light and threw it back in prismatic sparks. Eyes the color of amethysts. He knew because Draven had shown him mineral samples during their geology lessons, though the old man had called it knowing your resources for strategic purposes. But mostly she looked scared. You beat them." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Like Captain Cosmos." Riker's chest puffed out before he could stop it. "Bam pow! That was nothing. My grandpa makes me fight training robots underwater, with my eyes closed." "Really?" "Well, one eye closed." She giggled. Actually giggled. And Riker decided it was the best sound on any planet, in any system, anywhere in the universe. "I'm Riker, but everyone calls me Riker, except Grandpa. He calls me disappointment." She laughed again, softer this time. I'm Lyris. Where are your parents? This place isn't safe for kids. Her smile faded like stars at dawn. Don't have any, not anymore. Riker knew that tone. It was the same one he used when people asked about his mom and dad, before Draven usually interrupted with a lecture about dwelling on the past. Come on. He offered his muddy hand. I know somewhere better. She took it without hesitation. Her fingers were cold, shaking. He held on tighter. Over the next 7 days, Riker became a master of escape. He memorized Draven's routines down to the second, learned which training exercises left the old man needing longer recovery. High-gravity conditioning required at least 10 minutes. Discovered that certain frequencies of "Yes, sir," and "I understand, Admiral" could lull Draven into believing his grandson was properly subdued. Every free moment Riker ran to find Lyris. She'd built a shelter in an abandoned docking bay from cargo foam and thermal blankets borrowed from supply ships. She said with a grin the first time he found her there, surrounded by scraps she'd turned into something almost like a home. I'm captain of the Star Destroyer Revenge, Riker announced on day 3, standing atop a defunct loading mech. Why do you get the destroyer? Lyris scrambled up beside him. I want a ship too. Fine. You can be my first officer. No, I want my own ship, the Star Princess. That's a stupid name for a battleship. It's not a battleship, dummy. She pushed him playfully. It's a science vessel, with secret weapons, and it's faster than yours. Nothing's faster than the Revenge. Want to bet? They raced through the docking bay, leaping over dead equipment and sliding under low-hanging cables. Their laughter echoed off metal walls. Riker let her win, though he'd never admit it. On day 5, she brought him to her special place. Hidden behind a collapsed warehouse past a maze of discarded shipping containers was a patch of actual Earth. Not synthetic growing medium, not carefully managed terraformed soil. Real chaotic dirt where things grew wild. Purple flowers with golden centers pushed through cracks in the concrete. Wrong somehow, like nature's rebellion against the industrial decay. Mom taught me about these, Lyris said, plucking stems with practiced fingers. They're from Valuria originally. Someone must have dropped seeds years ago. She began weaving them together, her small hands impossibly quick and sure. She said even in the darkest places beauty finds a way. Flowers are stupid, Riker said automatically, though he watched her fingers with fascination. Your grandpa's an idiot. Hey, he's an admiral. He's won like 100 battles. Still an idiot if he can't see beauty. She finished the crown and placed it on his muddy head. There. Now you're King Riker. I look dumb. You look perfect. She started another crown for herself. Promise me something. What? Promise you won't become like him. All hard and mean and empty. Riker touched the flowers on his head. They felt impossibly delicate, like they might crumble if he breathed wrong. I'm going to be a soldier, like my dad was. You can be a soldier and still like flowers. Can't. Can too. She finished her crown and wore it like it was made of diamonds. My mum was a soldier. She taught me to fight and to make flower crowns. She said both were important. What happened to her? Lyris pulled her knees to her chest. The bad people came. She told me to run, so I ran. Riker didn't ask about the bad people. Even at 10 he knew that tone, the one that meant the story hurt too much to tell. Want to see something cool? He pulled from his pocket his prize possession. A curved tooth, the length of his thumb, yellowed with age. Whoa! Is that from a real dragon? Grandpa says it's just a fossil from some extinct animal. But look, He held it up to the light, filtering through broken windows. See those marks? They could be from dragonfire. Or from a plasma torch, she said practically. You're no fun. I'm lots of fun, just not stupid. But she smiled as she said it. On the 7th day, his last day, Riker knew he had to say goodbye. He'd stolen food before, little things Draven wouldn't miss from their supplies. But this time, he took everything he could carry: protein bars, water purification tablets, a medical kit, and most importantly, the credit chips he'd been saving for 3 years. 200 credits. Enough to buy passage off-world if you knew the right people. Enough for the plasma sword he'd dreamed about since seeing one in a weapon shop on Terra Prime. Enough to save someone. He found Lyris in their docking bay, sitting on her foam mattress, weaving another flower crown. Hey, look what I brought. He dumped the supplies at her feet like offerings to a queen. Her eyes widened. Riker, this is too much. No, it's not. Look. He spread out the credit chips. This can get you a room. At the transit station. The clean one, not the scary one with the things in the walls. Get some real food. Find work, maybe. There's always jobs for smart kids who can... Riker. Her voice was small. I can't take your money. Yes, you can. You have to. He grabbed her shoulders, suddenly desperate to make her understand. I'm leaving tomorrow. Grandpa's mission here is done and we're going back to the academy on Terra Prime and I can't. His voice cracked, stupid baby tears threatening. I'll come back, he said fiercely. Soon as I'm old enough to tell Grandpa to stuff his orders, I'll find you, and we'll go on real adventures. I'll have my own ship by then, a fast one. Not faster than mine, though, she said, but tears ran down her purple cheeks. Maybe we could share one. Be co-captains. That's not a thing. We'll make it a thing. He pressed the credits into her hands. Take it, please. Buy food. Stay safe. Wait for me. She looked at the chips, then at him. Don't promise things you can't do. I always keep my promises. Always. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek. His face burned hotter than the acid swamp. Then she pulled something from around her neck. The tooth he'd given her days ago on a leather cord. Wear this, she said, tying it around his neck. So you remember. I won't forget. You will. You'll go back to your fancy school and meet normal human girls and forget the weird purple girl from the gross trading planet. Never. He pulled his lucky crystal from his pocket. Clear quartz he'd found on his first mission with Draven. The one thing the old man hadn't been able to take away. You keep this. For luck. She clutched it like a lifeline. They stood there, 2 children on the edge of something neither understood. The weight of leaving of class and race and the vast universe between them, pressing down like gravity. That dragon tooth, she said suddenly. I think it really is from a dragon. Really, really. And someday you'll slay another dragon and bring me its whole head. Dragons don't exist. They do if we say they do. Riker hugged her, then quick and fierce, before either could think too much about it. See you soon, Lyris. See you soon, Riker Valen. He ran before she could see him cry. Heroes didn't cry, Draven said. But maybe Riker thought, as he fingered the tooth around his neck. Draven was wrong about a lot of things. On the transport ship the next morning, Riker pressed his face against the viewport, watching Nexar 5 shrink to a brown-grey marble in the black. Draven was in the cockpit, running system checks with the pilot. The comm unit crackled to life, news broadcast from the planet below, reports of conflict in the lower markets. Valyuran civil war spillover has resulted in significant casualties. The entire commercial district has been destroyed. Authorities report no survivors in sectors 7 through 12. Riker's blood turned to ice. Sector 9. That's where the docking bay was, where Lyris was. No. The word came out broken. No, no, no. He bolted for the cockpit. Draven caught him by the arm. Sir, we have to go back. There's someone... Sit down, boy. But she's... Whoever she is, she's gone. Draven's voice was iron. This is why warriors don't form attachments. It makes you weak. Please. Tears streamed down Riker's face. He didn't care anymore. Please, we have to. We have orders. We don't abandon missions for the dead. Draven pushed him into a seat and strapped him in. The transport jumped to FTL and Nexar 5 vanished from the viewport. Riker clutched the dragon tooth around his neck and cried. For the first time in his life, he cried like a child instead of a soldier. He didn't know that the purple girl was a princess, didn't know that his credits would buy her more than food, they'd buy her a future, didn't know that the crystal around her neck would hang there for 20 years waiting. All he knew was that for 7 days he'd been more than Draven Valen's disappointing grandson. He'd been Riker. And somewhere in the burning markets of Nexar 5, a promise waited to be kept. The Empress didn't move, didn't breathe, her hand still pressed against the crystal at her throat like she was trying to keep her heart from escaping through her ribs. The executioner's blade hummed, waiting. "Step back," she said. Her voice carried across the plaza like a blade through silk. Every guard, every noble, every creature in that crowd of 10,000 snapped to attention. The executioner hesitated. "Your Majesty, the sentence was clear." I said, "Step back." The blade withdrew. Riker's neck stopped burning. Blood still ran warm down his collar, but he was breathing. Still alive, still kneeling on marble that had seen too much death today. Lyris stood from her throne. The movement was liquid predatory. She descended the steps one at a time, each footfall echoing in the silence. Up close, she was taller than he remembered. 2 meters of lethal grace wrapped in silver armor that fit like a second skin. The purple of her face had deepened to twilight just before full dark. Her hair, once wild and free, now fell in braids so intricate they must have taken hours. But her eyes... God, those eyes! Amethyst and ancient and achingly familiar. She stopped 3 feet away, close enough that he could smell something floral, purple and gold flowers, he realized. The scent brought him back to a rusted docking bay and a crown of weeds placed on a muddy boy's head. "Death is too simple for this one," she announced, her voice pitched for the crowd. "Too quick, too merciful." The nobles leaned forward, hungry for cruelty. "He infiltrated my palace, stole from my private archives, thought he could spy on the Valuran Empire and escape unpunished." She began to circle him slowly. Riker felt like prey being evaluated by a particularly elegant predator. "So I have decided on a different fate for Admiral Riker Valen, hero of Terra Prime." She paused behind him close enough that he felt her breath on his ear. "He will become my personal prisoner, my pet human. Let everyone see how the mighty warrior kneels at my feet." The crowd roared approval. Public humiliation beat public execution any day. More entertainment value. Lasted longer. "Take him to my quarters," she commanded the guards, who stepped forward immediately. "Chain him! Let him remember what it means to challenge Valuria!" Rough hands grabbed Riker's arms, hauling him upright. He caught Lyris's eye for just a second as they dragged him away. The ice cracked. Something flickered there. Recognition. Maybe even warmth. Then it reformed harder than before, and she turned away with imperial dismissal. The walk through the palace felt endless. Corridors of white marble veined with purple crystal, fountains that defied gravity, water flowing upward in spirals. Guards in silver armor at every intersection, their faces carefully neutral as they watched the famous Terran admiral being marched to imprisonment. The imperial quarters sprawled across the palace's entire upper floor. More rooms than any single person could possibly need. The guards chained Riker to a post in what appeared to be a sitting room, though sitting didn't do justice to furniture that looked carved from single pieces of pale wood. "The Empress will deal with you when she's ready," one guard sneered, giving the chains an extra tug that bit into Riker's wrists. They left him alone. Riker counted to 100 after the door closed, listened for footsteps in the corridor. Nothing but his own breathing and the distant hum of the palace's life support systems. Time for Draven's favorite party trick. He dislocated his thumb. It hurt like hell, same as it had the first 50 times the old man made him practice. But pain was just information, and information could be ignored. He slipped one hand free, reset his thumb with a quiet pop that made his teeth clench, then went to work on the locks. "You know," a voice said behind him, "those chains cost more than a starship." Riker spun so fast he nearly dislocated his shoulder this time. Lyris stood in a doorway he hadn't even noticed. She'd traded her armor for a simple dress which made her look more dangerous, not less. Purple fabric that moved like water. No weapons visible, which meant nothing. "I'll buy you new ones." She touched a wall panel. A soft hum filled the room, the familiar vibration of a privacy field engaging. No surveillance now, no guards listening, just two people and 20 years of silence. "Now we can speak freely." She studied him for a long moment. Her hand drifted to the crystal at her throat, then fell away like she'd been burned. "Riker, is it really you?" "Hello, flower girl." The ice shattered completely. She crossed the room in 3 strides and punched him in the shoulder, hard. "Ow! What was that for?" 20 years. Her voice cracked. 20 years without a word. "I was busy." Busy. She hit him again, the other shoulder this time. Too busy to send one message. One. "Hey, I'm alive. How are you?" Riker backed up a step, rubbing his shoulder. "You disappeared. I came back to Nexar 5 when I turned 18. Spent 3 months searching every sector, every station. Nobody knew about a purple girl named Lyris. Because I'd already taken back my throne by then, you idiot." She advanced on him, fists clenched. "How was I supposed to know you were looking? How was I supposed to know you were a secret princess? I told you. You said you were an orphan." "I was—" Her voice rose. "My aunt orphaned me quite effectively when she murdered my parents and dumped me on that cesspool planet to die." They stood glaring at each other, chests heaving. The silence stretched tight as a wire. Then Riker noticed the tears on her purple cheeks. "Hey," he said softly, reaching toward her. "Don't." But her voice had lost its edge. She grabbed a bottle from a nearby cabinet. Crystal decanter filled with something amber that caught the light. Poured 2 glasses without asking if he wanted one. "Drink." "Trying to get me drunk so I'll reveal Terran military secrets. Trying to get us both drunk so I can pretend this is simple." She handed him the glass. "Remember when our biggest problem was hiding from your grandfather? Now you're hiding from half the galaxy. And you're supposedly dead." She raised her glass. "To complicated lives." They drank. It tasted like burnt flowers and bad decisions, but it hit his stomach like liquid warmth. "So," he said, setting down his empty glass, "about this pet prisoner thing. Oh, you're going to hate it. For the first time she actually smiled, the real smile he remembered from childhood. "I'm going to make you wear a collar." "Absolutely not. With a little bell." "Lyris, and you'll have to call me mistress in public." "I'd rather die." "That can still be arranged." She was laughing now, the sound bright and familiar, and suddenly she looked 20 years younger. The laugh faded into something softer. She refilled their glasses. "God, Riker, how did this happen? How did we become this?" "You became an empress. I became a weapon." He took another drink. The second one went down easier. "Your cousin, Kazan. Tell me about him." The laughter died completely. "Ambitious. Cruel." She turned the glass in her hands, watching the liquid catch light. "Thinks the throne should have been his because he has pure blood and I'm tainted by my mother's common genetics." "Your mother was common." "A soldier. Dad fell in love with her during a border skirmish. Huge scandal." She took a slow sip. "My aunt never forgave him for marrying beneath his station. And now the son wants what he thinks is his. With the syndicate's help." She met his eyes. "They're planning something soon. I can feel it." "How do you know?" She set down her glass with a soft clink. "Because 3 of my food tasters have died this month. Someone's testing poisons, seeing what works on Valuran physiology." Riker's blood chilled. "You need to—" "I'm careful, but they're getting desperate." She moved to the window, gazing out at the city below. "And desperate people make mistakes. Or they get lucky." "That too." He crossed to stand beside her. The city of Valuria sprawled beneath them in spirals of white and purple, impossibly beautiful in the fading light of twin suns. "Why did you really let me into the palace?" he asked quietly. "You said you knew I was coming." She pulled the crystal from beneath her dress. His crystal, the one he'd pressed into her small hands 20 years ago. It caught the sunset and threw rainbows across her face. "I recognized the tooth around your neck. In the security footage. You've worn it every day for 20 years. You kept the crystal. Every day for 20 years. They stood in silence watching the sun set, the weight of 2 decades pressed down between them. "I used your money," she said suddenly. "The 200 credits. For food, I hope. For mercenaries. 3 of them exactly what 200 credits could buy on Nexar 5 in 2247. She turned to face him fully. "I was 15 when I killed my aunt. Cut her throat in her sleep, took back the throne my parents built and ruled through terror until people forgot I was just a child playing dress-up. You're not playing now. No. Now I'm the Ice Empress. Cold, ruthless, possibly psychotic according to your intelligence briefings." Riker had the grace to look embarrassed. "You saw those. I see everything that concerns my empire. There's a whole section about my collection of human skulls." That part worried me. "I don't collect skulls. That's gross." The intelligence was very specific. 1 skull. She held up a finger. "My aunt's former advisor, and it's a paperweight now, so it's practical." Riker stared at her. "That's actually more disturbing. He betrayed my parents." The ice crept back into her voice, cold and sharp. "He got what he deserved." This wasn't the girl who made flower crowns. This was someone forged in fire and cooled in blood. But then again, Riker wasn't the boy who puked in swamp water anymore either. He shifted his weight. "I didn't come here to steal pudding recipes." "I know. Shipping manifests. Boring stuff on the surface. Grain deliveries, medical supplies." She paused. "Weapons shipments to 12 different planets. Including here, to Kazan." "How long?" 6 months minimum, maybe longer." He met her gaze. "Heavy ordnance too, the kind that cracks bunkers. Or palaces. Or palaces." A soft chime filled the room. Lyris touched the wall panel, and a holographic display materialized in the air. Text in Valuran script that Riker couldn't read, but he recognized alarm codes when he saw them. Her face went pale. "What is it?" "The kitchens. Chef Morvac is dead. Poison in my evening meal." They looked at each other. The game had just changed. "He's moving tonight," Riker said. The reception. "There are 200 nobles in the Grand Hall right now." She was already moving toward the door. If Kazan attacks during the celebration, it's the perfect cover. Chaos, confusion, plenty of suspects. She stopped, turned back. For just a second, her mask slipped. The Empress vanished, and there was only Lyris, 9 years old and scared. "I can't do this alone anymore." "You're not alone." Riker crossed to her. "Not anymore. Riker, The door exploded inward. Guards poured through, weapons raised. But these weren't her guards. The armor was wrong, the insignia different. Kazan's men. "Kill the human," the lead assassin commanded. "Take the Empress alive." Time slowed. Riker catalogued the room in a heartbeat. 5 attackers, all armed. A decorative sword on the wall that might hold an edge. A heavy crystal vase on the table. The chains he'd been working free from earlier. Lyris moved first. She grabbed the vase and hurled it at the nearest assassin's face. Crystal shattered. The man dropped screaming. Blood ran purple down his cheek. Riker dove for the sword. His hand closed around the hilt just as the second assassin fired. Plasma seared past his ear close enough to singe hair. He came up swinging. The blade caught the assassin across the throat. Not deep enough to kill, but deep enough to make him think about his life choices. 3 left. Lyris had produced a knife from somewhere in her dress. Small blade, wickedly sharp. She moved like water, like violence given form. The knife found gaps in armor, soft tissue between plates. 1 assassin went down gurgling. 2 left. They flanked professional and calm. This wasn't random thugs. This was military training. "Behind you," Lyris shouted. Riker spun. The blade whistled through air where his neck had been. He grabbed the assassin's wrist, twisted, felt bone snap. The man's weapon clattered to the floor. Riker picked it up and put a plasma bolt through the man's chest. 1 left. The final assassin stood in the doorway, weapon trained on Lyris. His hand was steady, his eyes cold. "Your cousin sends his regards, Empress." He fired. Riker threw himself between the bolt and Lyris. Heat seared across his shoulder, burning through uniform and skin. The smell of his own flesh cooking filled his nostrils. He didn't let go of his weapon. His shot took the assassin between the eyes. Silence fell like snow. 5 bodies on the floor, smoke curling from plasma wounds, the smell of burned meat and death. Riker's shoulder screamed. His vision swam. "You're hit." Lyris caught him as his knees buckled. "You stupid, stupid man. Why did you—" "Because I promised." The words came out slurred. 20 years ago. Promised to come back. Promised to—" The floor tilted sideways. Or maybe he was falling. Hard to tell. "Stay with me." Her voice sounded far away. "Riker, stay with me. We need to get to the medical—" An explosion shook the palace. Then another. Closer this time. "The Grand Hall," Lyris whispered. More explosions. The floor beneath them cracked. She hauled Riker to his feet, his good arm across her shoulders. "Can you walk? Can I fly?" "I'll take that as a maybe." They ran through collapsing corridors. Smoke filled every breath. Screams echoed from the Grand Hall. Behind them, Riker heard the distinctive whine of more plasma weapons charging. "The garden!" Lyris gasped. "Emergency shuttle on the roof! If we can reach—" A section of ceiling gave way. They dove right, rolled, came up running. Riker's shoulder left a blood trail on white marble. They burst through a doorway onto the roof garden and stopped. Purple and gold flowers grew everywhere. Thousands of them. Millions. Maybe covering every surface in a sea of color that shouldn't exist on a palace roof. "You grew them," Riker said, understanding. "Every day for 20 years. Tears ran down her face, cutting tracks through smoke and blood. "I wanted you to see them when you came back." The palace shook again. The garden began to tilt. "Later," she said, grabbing his hand. "I'll show you properly later. Right now we need to—" A figure stepped from the smoke, tall, purple-skinned, silver-haired. The family resemblance was unmistakable. Kazan smiled. Behind him, a dozen soldiers in unmarked armor leveled weapons at the fleeing Empress and her pet human. "Hello, sister dear," he said. "Going somewhere?" Kazan moved like a predator who'd already won. Each step calculated, purposeful. His armor was black, where Lyris's had been silver, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Behind him, 12 soldiers in unmarked gear held weapons that hummed with readiness. The garden tilted further. Flowers slid down the slope in cascades of purple and gold. Below them, the palace burned. Smoke rose in columns that stained the sunset sky. Riker's shoulder screamed, blood soaked through his uniform, running warm down his arm. His vision swam at the edges, but he stayed standing, stayed between Lyris and her cousin. "You've made this difficult, sister." Kazan's voice was smooth, cultured, the kind of voice that belonged in council chambers, not battlefields. "All you had to do was die quietly, take the poison, go to sleep. Instead, you had to bring this pet into my palace. Your palace." Lyris's hand found Riker's. Her fingers were cold. "Funny, I don't remember abdicating." "Details." Kazan waved dismissively. "Your reign ends tonight either way. The only question is how much you suffer first." The garden lurched. A chunk of roof broke away, tumbling into the burning palace below. The flowers kept sliding, a slow-motion avalanche of beauty dying. "Why?" Lyris's voice cracked. "We're family. The only family either of us has left." "Family?" Kazan laughed. It was not a kind sound. "You mean the tainted bloodline, the half-breed empress playing at royalty while our empire crumbles? I rebuilt Valuria from ashes." "You built a mausoleum?" He stepped closer. The soldiers moved with him, a coordinated unit. "Your mother was common dirt. Your father betrayed everything our people stood for by loving her, and you're the mistake that resulted." Riker felt Lyris tense, felt rage building in her like a physical force. "But I'm not here to debate genetics," Kazan continued. "I'm here to offer you a choice. Give me the codes, the genetic sequences your mother hid in her DNA before she died. Open the vault and I'll make your death quick." "What vault?" Riker asked. Speaking hurt. Everything hurt. "He doesn't know." Kazan's smile widened. "How delicious. Your pet human risking his life doesn't even understand what he's dying for." "Shut up," Lyris hissed. "Oh no, let's educate him." Kazan addressed Riker directly. "Did you know Earth still exists? Real Earth, not the scattered colonies. The home world, hidden for 300 years behind a curtain of lies and secrecy." Riker's blood went cold. "Impossible! Earth was destroyed in the collapse." "Earth was quarantined," Kazan corrected. "Sealed away by your ancestors to protect it from the galactic wars. 50 billion humans living there right now, believing they're the last of their kind. dying slowly because they lost access to the resources that kept their overpopulated world alive. You're lying. Am I? Kazan pulled a data chip from his armor, tossed it at Riker's feet. Navigation data. Pre-collapse routes. All locked in genetic code that only Valuran royal blood can decrypt. Your people could go home human. They could save 50 billion lives. All your precious Empress has to do is die. Lyris laughed. It was sharp as broken glass. And you're the hero. You're going to save humanity out of the goodness of your heart. I'm going to save humanity because the Syndicate is paying me enough to rebuild the Empire properly, without common blood weakening it. The palace shook again. The roof garden cracked down the middle. Flowers tumbled into the void. Last chance, sister. The codes. Now. Come take them. Kazan sighed. So be it. He raised his hand. The sky tore open. Ships dropped from the clouds. Terran ships, their hulls painted with the unmistakable white and gold of the human fleet. Riker recognized the lead vessel immediately. The indomitable, Draven's flagship. Plasma fire rained from above. Kazan's soldiers scattered returning fire at targets they couldn't reach. The unmarked ships engaging the Terran fleet lit up the darkening sky with violence. "Grandpa," Riker whispered. A voice crackled through every speaker, every comm unit, every device capable of receiving a signal. "Kazan!" Admiral Draven Valen's voice was iron wrapped in ice. "You have something that belongs to me." The dead Admiral. Kazan looked up, unconcerned. "Your grandson is very much alive, old man. For now." "I wasn't talking about Riker." Silence. Then understanding dawned on Kazan's face. "You knew. This whole time you knew about the vault." "I've known for 40 years. Draven's voice carried weight like gravity. "Since before you were born. Since before your aunt murdered the rightful rulers. I've been waiting for someone worthy to claim what's inside." Riker stared at Lyris. She looked as shocked as he felt. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. "Your mother and I were friends." For the first time in Riker's life, Draven's voice was soft, gentle even. "She told me about the vault, about the genetic locks, about what would happen if the wrong person opened it." "And you said nothing," Lyris's voice shook. "For 20 years. I was waiting to see what kind of ruler you'd become, whether you'd be like your mother who understood that some doors should stay closed, or like your aunt who would burn the galaxy for power." The Indomitable descended through the smoke. Its weapons blazed. 3 Syndicate cruisers exploded in silent flowers of light. "And now," Kazan asked, "now I'm choosing. The boy I sent to Nexar 5 20 years ago came back a man. The girl he saved became an empress, worth saving." A pause. "My grandson keeps his promises. So do I." Riker's throat tightened. All those years, all that training, the cruelty, the discipline, the endless lessons, it had all been leading here. To a promise Draven made to a dead friend. "You manipulated everything." The words came out quiet, talking to himself, to Lyris, to the old man in the sky. "You wanted me to meet her. I wanted you to learn what I never could," Draven interrupted. "That strength without compassion is just brutality. That the best warriors fight for something more than orders." Kazan screamed. His soldiers opened fire on Lyris and Riker simultaneously. 12 plasma rifles, coordinated, precise. Riker grabbed Lyris and dove. They hit the tilting garden, hard, rolled through flowers that crushed beneath them. Heat seared overhead. The air itself seemed to burn. They came up running. The garden was dying, chunks of it falling away into the inferno below. The shuttle sat 50 meters away, emergency lights blinking like a beacon. Behind them, Kazan's voice rose above the chaos. "You want to save humanity, old man? Then watch them burn." Something massive dropped from orbit, not a ship, a weapon. Riker recognized the signature, a kinetic strike, the kind that cracked planets. The Indomitable moved. Draven's flagship, the pride of the Terran fleet, accelerated directly into the weapon's path. The ship that had won 100 battles, saved 1,000 worlds, piloted by a man who'd never surrendered in 70 years of war. "Grandpa, no!" Riker screamed. "I told you, boy. Warriors don't abandon their missions." Draven's voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Take care of her. She's worth it." The Indomitable collided with the kinetic strike. The explosion painted the sky white. Riker felt the shockwave through his bones, felt his grandfather's life extinguish like a candle in a hurricane. Lyris caught him as his knees gave out. "We have to move!" she gasped. Blood ran from a cut on her forehead. "Riker, we have to—" Kazan materialized in front of them. Somehow he'd crossed 50 meters in seconds. Armor scorched, perfect face twisted with rage. "You took everything," he hissed at Lyris. "Everything that should have been mine!" He raised a weapon. Point-blank range. No dodging, no escape. Lyris stepped in front of Riker. "Then take it," she said quietly. Kazan's finger tightened on the trigger. Lyris screamed. It wasn't a sound. It was something deeper, a force that hit Riker's brain like a physical blow. Every Valyrian within a kilometer radius dropped instantly, clutching their heads. Kazan staggered. Blood leaked from his ears, his nose, his eyes. What are you?" "My mother's gift." Lyris's voice echoed, strangely layered, as if 1,000 voices spoke through her. "The power she never taught me to use because she was afraid of what it might cost." The telepathic wave expanded. Riker felt it brush past him, harmless to his human mind. But the Valyrians... God, the Valyrians! Syndicate soldiers dropped from the sky as their ships lost pilots. Kazan fell to his knees, screaming without sound. In the city below, every Valyrian within range collapsed simultaneously. Lyris was burning herself out. Her body trembled. Blood ran from her nose. "Stop!" Riker grabbed her arm. "You're killing yourself. I'm ending this." "Not like this." He pulled her close, forced her to look at him. "Not if it means losing you again." Her eyes focused. The pressure in the air eased. Around them, Valyrians gasped for air, clutching their heads, but alive. Except Kazan. He lay on his back among the purple and gold flowers, eyes open but empty. Blood pooled beneath his head. His heart had given out under the psychic assault. Lyris collapsed. Riker caught her, cradling her against his good shoulder. His bad shoulder had gone numb. Probably not a good sign. "The shuttle," she whispered. "Can you—" "Yeah." He could barely walk. His vision swam. Blood loss made everything feel distant, unreal. But he carried her, one foot in front of the other, through dying flowers and across cracking stone. The shuttle's door opened at their approach. Emergency protocols kicking in. Riker laid Lyris in the co-pilot seat, strapped her in with shaking hands. His fingers wouldn't work right. Too much blood gone. "Riker." Her hand found his face. "Stay with me." Trying. He slumped into the pilot seat. The controls swam in and out of focus. "Just give me a second." The palace collapsed beneath them. The The shuttle's emergency launch sequence activated automatically, throwing them into the sky on a pillar of thrust. Below, Valyria burned, ships fought and died. The war wasn't over, not even close, but they were alive. Riker's vision went dark. White ceiling, soft light, the smell of antiseptic and recycled air. Riker opened his eyes, slowly testing whether consciousness was really a good idea. His shoulder throbbed. His head felt like it had been used for target practice. But he was breathing, alive. "You're awake." Lyris sat beside his bed. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, dark circles under her eyes. Clothes rumpled. The most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. "How long?" His voice came out like gravel. 4 weeks. She stood, moved to his bedside. Her hand found his, careful of the IV lines. "You were in a coma. Blood loss trauma, your body just shut down." I'm fine. Telepathy has a price, but I'm learning to pay it." She smiled weakly. "The war's over. Syndicate scattered. Kazan's supporters surrendered when they saw what I could do. And Earth, the vault opened. Genetic codes worked. We found the navigation data." She paused. "Your people can go home now. 50 billion lives waiting." "Just like Kazan said." Riker processed this slowly. His brain felt like it was moving through honey. "Draven." Lyris's expression softened. "I'm sorry." He'd known, had felt it happen, but hearing it made it real. The old bastard was gone. The man who'd raised him, trained him, manipulated him into becoming someone worth being. "He left you something." Lyris handed him a data chip. "Recorded message. I haven't watched it." Riker stared at the chip. Later. He'd deal with that later. "How long have you been here?" he asked instead. "Since they brought you in." 4 weeks? "I left for meals, sometimes." She looked embarrassed. "And showers, occasionally." "Lyris." "I already lost you once." Her voice cracked. 20 years ago, I thought you were dead. I built an empire on that grief. I can't do it again." Riker sat up slowly. His shoulder screamed in protest, but he ignored it, pulled her close with his good arm. "I promised I'd come back." "You're an idiot." "Yeah. You could have died. But I didn't." She pulled back just far enough to look at him. Tears ran down her purple cheeks, cutting tracks he wanted to memorize. "Don't ever do that again. Promise me." "I can't promise I won't die eventually. Kind of comes with being human." "Then promise me this." She took a shaking breath. "Promise you'll stay. As long as you can. As long as this universe lets you." "I promise." She kissed him, not like the innocent peck on the cheek from 20 years ago. This was different. This was 2 decades of loss and fear and hope compressed into one moment. This was a promise answered with another promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lyris was crying and laughing at the same time. "I have something for you," she said. She pulled a small box from her pocket. Inside 2 rings. Simple metal, no gemstones. But etched into each band was a pattern he recognized, purple and gold flowers intertwined. "Are you asking you to marry me?" "Yes." She met his eyes steadily. "I'm an empress. I don't do anything halfway." Riker laughed. It hurt his shoulder, but he didn't care. "Yes. Yes. Did you think I'd say no? I thought you might want time to—" "I've had 20 years. That's enough time." She kissed him again, softer this time, a promise instead of a question. 8 months later, Riker stood in a garden that shouldn't exist. They'd built it on Earth. Real Earth, the planet that had been lost and found again, soil that had never been terraformed, never been engineered, just dirt and water and sunlight doing what they'd done for billions of years. Purple and gold flowers grew in careful rows. Lyris had planted each one herself, refusing help from anyone. She said some things had to be done by hand. She walked toward him now, moving carefully. 8 months pregnant. She'd lost some of her predatory grace, but gained something else. Something softer, more dangerous in its own way. "You're staring," she said. "You're beautiful." "I'm huge. Hugely beautiful." She laughed and took his hand, placing it on her swollen belly. Under his palm, their daughter kicked, strong, healthy, probably already planning to take over the galaxy. "Your grandfather would have loved this," Lyris said quietly. Riker thought about that. About the old man who'd raised him through pain and discipline, who'd manipulated 2 children into meeting on a garbage planet, who'd died saving them both. "Yeah," he said. "He would have." They stood together as the sun set over humanity's homeworld. Around them flowers bloomed, purple and gold growing even in the darkest places, proving what Lyris's mother had known all along. Even in ash, even in loss, even in 20 years of waiting, beauty finds a way. And promises, real promises, are always kept.